Nasty, brutish, and short may describe Lynx and the Sontarans, but not this story. Classic Doctor Who review time. Time for some Third Doctor stuff. Been a while since I've gotten to spend a bit of time with Jon Pertwee, and I need to thank my Patreon supporters for this. The one that they selected for me out of the options I gave them, the Time Warrior. I love this story a lot. A lot of stuff going on here. This is during Pertwee's last season that he was on the show. It is the introduction of the Sontarans. It's the introduction of Sarah Jane Smith. And even setting those two things aside, it's just a ripping good story. So, what do we got in this thing? So we have, naturally, of course, the Doctor, Jon Pertwee, the dandy, suave as ever. He is looking into, or trying to help the Brigadier look into, some scientists who have been going missing from a heavily guarded research facility. Like a place that there's absolutely no way anyone should be able to kidnap them from. Now, Sarah Jane Smith shows up because she basically sneaks in on her aunt's invitation in, claiming to be her aunt. She is, in fact, a reporter looking for a story because she had heard suspicious things were going on here. So that's how she gets on board. Now, what is going on? Well, there's a Sontaran named Lynx, and Lynx crashed his ship. Not in current day Earth, where the Doctor is, but rather back in the Middle Ages. And he is using what little remnants and functioning bits of equipment are left on his ship to project himself forward far enough to get a hold of scientists and put them to work fixing his ship so we can get the heck off this planet again. And in the course of that, he has also teamed up with a local warlord by the name of Irongron, who is taking advantage of the king being away on a crusade and taking most of the soldiers of the other nobles in the area with him. And Irongron's he's taken over a castle, he's planning to take over some others, and so Lynx is working on providing him with weapons that are too advanced for the time. And so the Doctor has to rescue the scientists, has to get these weapons away from Irongron because that's going to screw up human history, has to deal with Lynx, who's not a pleasant guy, and we have our adventure. Man, it's a good one. It's this to date, I always make a point of saying this so far in all of these cases, because there's no classic era Doctor who I've seen all of their stuff yet. I've got gaps on all of them. But at this point, this is my favorite Third Doctor story. I love the heck out of this thing so much. So, first of all, Pertwee himself. He really, I totally get why after Roger Delgado's very unfortunate and premature end that, he felt, what, maybe it's time for me to wind this down. And, maybe even he didn't have quite as much fun with it anymore. If that was the case, it doesn't show in this performance. He is so charming. He gets some of the best Third Doctor lines in this. To the Brigadier, the quickest distance between 2 points may be a straight line, but that's rarely the most interesting. Or to Sarah Jane Smith, she's asking him, "Are you serious?" He says, "About what I do? Yes. But not always about the way that I do it." Like, these are such great Doctor lines, and he's just, God, the guy's just suave. And he's absolutely terrific in this. And of course, he is a bit more of the action Doctor. He gets to do a bit of his Venusian Aikido and all that stuff. So, there's a bit of that. I remember first time watching it being thrown off by that because, I was accustomed to the other Doctors who don't really do that too much. But assuming that doesn't throw you off, it's good. And he's he's just fun to watch. The villains are great too. First of all, Lynx is really good. I'm surprised how well the Sontaran look. Both the exterior armor look, which was a really cool fit because it makes him not stand out so much in medieval times when there are other people in suits of armor. His looks a little weird, but it looks like a suit of armor, so that looks decent enough. And then his actual alien Sontaran look, it holds up surprisingly well. It's a little weird the first time he takes his helmet off and he's, that's what the cliffhanger's on, and he's sticking his tongue out for no reason. He's going, like, I don't know why he's doing that. So, there's little weird moments like that. But he's good. He's got that that military obsession. He's got that nastiness about him that is really good for the Sontarans, especially when they're your primary villains. So I mean, he really is a terrific representative of this race, and the Sontarans are a wonderfully fully formed concept. They really are. I see why they were brought back repeatedly, because it's all here. The probic vent in the back of the neck, the fact that the Sontarans don't consider that a weakness because it means they have to face their enemies, and they consider that a strength. You've got this whole thing, this whole warrior culture, but at the same time he looks down on the Iron Gron and his men, but he has a thirst for battle. He wants to see how battle is conducted here. It's just really awesome. And I love Iron Gron. Seriously, he's one of my favorite Doctor Who supporting characters. Like, one story appearance supporting characters. Like, I like him so much that I even hesitate to call him a villain. I mean, like, he's not a good guy. Certainly for the era. If Lynx wasn't there, he's the villain of the situation that's going on. But, he's a man of his time. Behaving the way that he does, and he's all blood. Like, he's the perfect balance, because he's smart enough. He's definitely smarter than his men, but he's not that smart. He's definitely braver than his men, but he's not that brave. So, you get this every now and then. You see the cracks and the bluster, and he's just one. And like, it's a great double act with him and his Lieutenant Bloodaxe. Those two. Honestly, I would watch a show that was just the two of them. I'm not even kidding. I love these two that much. They're a great double act, and it's like, honestly, it's almost a bit like a medieval Blackadder. He's got that kind of sort of dynamic going on, in the sense of like he's just trying to work his way up, and he's a nasty piece of work. I make that comparison, and maybe it doesn't hold up at all, but like in my head, that's kind of a vibe I get off them, and I love them. And I mean, all the rest of it looks really good because, being filmed in England, they have access to actual castles, and this is the kind of thing that the BBC at the time, even on a low budget, could do and make look good, is these kinds of historical settings. There are actual castles all over England that they can shoot in. It looks good. It looks convincing. Sarah Jane Smith has a really strong introduction here. You can sense in some ways, though, that she is very much a deliberate attempt to go a different direction with the companions. Yet at the same time, they're still falling into some tropes. So, she's not the subservient assistant immediately asking, "What can I do for you, Doctor? How can I help?" She's very outwardly and blatantly feminist. At one point even talking to sort of the head, I don't want to say wench, that sounds awful, but like head female servant person for Iron Gron, is like, you should rise up, you should stand up for yourself. And it's like, Sarah, read the room, know your audience. But that's kind of just how she is, and that's not a bad thing. But at the same time, they're like, what can we do? Oh, we'll be super progressive. We'll make her a plucky reporter. You mean like Lois Lane, who was invented almost 50 years before this. It's kind of oddly adorable that it's a step forward from some of the female companion templates up to that point, but it's not as much of a step forward as they think it is. But Elizabeth Sladen is awesome in this part. She is really good, and even though she can't keep up with the Doctor, she does a pretty good job of coming to what I think would be the most reasonable conclusions that you or I would have come to if we were in her situation, knowing what she knows, but not knowing, everything that was going on, not knowing what the Doctor knows. And yeah, she sells it really well. Like, I don't have any significant criticisms about this. Like, I could do little nitpicks. Like, there was the tongue thing, and like there's an explosion towards the end that is it's just a really awkward cut. Here's this thing that's fine, and now here's an explosion, and they want your brain to try and make the connection that the explosion is happening where the thing was a second ago, and it doesn't work at all. So there's things like that, but like none of it impacts the story. It is funny to me, going back, that in their very first story that the Sontarans have a surprising degree of time travel capabilities, because Lynx doesn't have a lot of resources yet, but he's still able to move forward enough in time to do this, which I suppose is why in some of their return appearances in Classic Era, the Sontarans, they kind of had them doing weird time stuff. Like, that came up in the Two Doctors, and I understand it comes up in some other ones as well. It's funny now that in Modern Era Who, they seem to have just dropped the Sontaran's ability to travel through time from their list of skills, which probably for the best, all things considered at this point. But it is interesting to sort of think about, from now, knowing what goes on with them later. But like, seriously, just watch this. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. If you have seen it, watch it again. It's really good. And it's not even that long. It's only a 4-parter. So it's about the shortest version that these stories were from Classic Era. It just goes down so easy. Oh, I love it. The Time Warrior, Jon Pertwee, and what I think is certainly the best of the ones that I've seen. A really phenomenal episode. What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff you can do, because there's buttons and there's links, including one to my Patreon if you are feeling so generous. If you're not, don't worry. There's other links too. You don't have to check out any of them if you don't want, because you know what? End of the day, you're the council and I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.